If you're somebody retiring in Canada, you probably have an RRSP, or Registered Retirement Savings Plan. But when you hit retirement, what the heck do you do with it? How do you convert it? How do you draw money out of it? How do you create tax efficiency? We're going to cover all that in this video. An RRSP is a vehicle to save money leading up to retirement. When you put money into an RRSP, you get a tax deduction on the other side. So if you make $50,000, you put $5,000 into an RRSP, the government taxes you only on $45,000. So you get a bit of a tax break. That money then grows tax deferred, meaning all the growth year over year isn't taxed. You're only taxed when you take the money out of it. So let's talk about that end phase where you actually start needing to draw money out of your RRSP. So for a lot of you watching our videos, I know you're in retirement or you're getting very close to retirement and you have a lot of questions around RRSP, riff. How does this work? Like, what's the difference? Can I invest the same? How do I get from one account to the other? When, why, all of that. So let's start with the why. Why do you want to convert your RRSP to a riff? And there's typically two main reasons you want to do that. First, you're drawing income and you need to start drawing money out of it. Now, if you leave your money in an RRSP and just draw money out of an RRSP, you are going to pay, most financial institutions will charge you a $25 to $50 transaction fee. So first off, if you need to start drawing money out of your RRSP, you're going to pay a penalty every single time you draw money out of $25 to $50. So kind of wasted money at that point. The second reason you're going to want to convert from an RRSP to a RIF, a retirement income fund, would be withholding taxes. So when you convert your RRSP to a RIF, any money that you take out of there, there's a minimum amount that you have to take out every year. So if you convert your RRSP to a RIF right now in 2023, starting the following year, 2024, there'll be a minimum amount that you have to take out. So let's say you have a $100,000 RRSP, you convert it to a RIF today, 2024, you have a minimum amount. Let's say you're 60 years old. The minimum amount at 60 is 3.33%. If you have a $100,000 RRSP, that means the first $3,333 that you take out of your RIF account is the minimum amount. You have to take it out, but there's no withholding tax on that. There's only withholding tax above $3,333. So let's say your plan was, you know what, I'm going to take it out over the next 5 years before age 65. So you're going to take out $20,000. There's going to be withholding tax on any amount above the minimum. Again, if you're taking out 20 minus the $3,333, you're going to be taxed on just under $17,000. Now, withholding tax. There's 3 levels of withholding tax. Quebec's a little bit different. We'll link that below. But anything under $5,000 is a 10% withholding tax. Anything above $5,000 but below $15,000 is 10%. And above $15,000 is going to be 30% withholding tax. Now, withholding tax is just taxes you're prepaying to CRA that you will get credited for when you do your tax return. Much like when you were working, you got paid and they withheld some tax. And when you did your tax return, you got credit for that. So it's not a penalty, you're just prepaying some of the taxes. So if you plan to take out $20,000 from your RIF account, there's going to be a 30% withholding tax on the difference between $20,000, what you're taking out, and the minimum amount. So again, just under $17,000 will have a 30% withholding tax. If you left it in the RRSP and did the same $20,000 withdrawal, there would be 30% withholding on the full amount. And again, that's probably more tax than you need to pay unless you're in a very high income tax bracket. Now, when we look at withholding tax and why you want to kind of convert it into a RIF, is it goes back to your financial plan and retirement plan. So you want to make sure you understand what is your effective or your average tax rate in retirement. If you left all your money in RRSP and were pulling out big amounts and there was a 30% withholding tax, but your average tax rate in retirement was only 10, 12, 15%, then that means CRA is going to be holding a lot of money throughout the year. They'll refund it to you at tax time, but they have your money in the meantime. Wouldn't it be nice to kind of level that out a bit better? And that's why as you meet with your financial planner, you want to look at what are all of my income sources, how much tax is going to be withheld, and then look at your retirement plan and say, okay, here's how much tax I should be paying overall between all my income sources and my average tax rate. And you want to try and keep the two as equal as possible. Sometimes, again, with withholding tax, it's CRA mandated, and they are going to withhold what they're going to withhold. So sometimes you can't avoid it. You might have more withholding tax than actual tax you're going to pay. But again, rolling that RRSP into the RIF will help avoid paying more taxes because that minimum amount is not going to be withheld. The next level is, when do you want to convert your RRSP to a RIF? And I want to dive into this because yes, the year you turn 71, you have to convert your RRSP to a RIF, and the following year, you have to start taking money out of there. For most of you, you want to take money much sooner than that. And I won't get into that in this video, but essentially you want to start taking it as early as possible in a tax efficient manner and look at your other income sources and work everything together to level out your average or your effective tax rate. But when you look at when do I want to convert my RRSP to a RIF, I want to talk about, do you have to convert the whole amount? And we have a client that we're working with right now. He was able to build up a very large RRSP. So let's just call it $1.5 million. And he's not quite 71, he's in his late 60s, but he doesn't need all that money. So if we converted the full $1.5 million into a RIF, the minimum amount that he would have to pull is actually more than we're planning to pull right now. So what we've done is we've converted part of it. And you can do this as well. If you don't need the full amount, you could convert part of your RRSP into a RIF and then take from there. So again, we have some clients that want to keep it simple. They might go back to work. Your situation might change. One note here, and put an asterisk beside this, write it down, make a note of this. If you convert your RRSP to a RIF, a retirement income fund, and start drawing money out, and your world changes, and you maybe go back to work, whatever it is, you don't need money from your RIF anymore, and you may not for a few years, as long as you're under the age of 71, you can convert or move your money from a RIF back to an RRSP. So you can kind of do the reversal if required. So don't think like this is a one and done. If you're under 71, you're able to convert it back if things change in your life. But let's say you have an RRSP and you don't need to convert the full amount. You can open up a RIF, and let's say you want to draw out $10,000 a year. Maybe you just move $10,000 from an RRSP to a RIF, pull it out the following year. You can keep it super simplified. I'll say this, most of our clients will convert 100% of the RRSP to a RIF because we're pulling a substantial amount out every year, part of their plan. But again, sit down, talk to your financial planner, build out a proper retirement plan to figure out how much you need, and that will determine, should I convert all of my RIF or all of my RRSP into a RIF, or just do partial? Now, another note here, and again, second asterisk here, write it down, because this is probably the number one question I get, is, Adam, when I convert my RRSP to a RIF, I don't really want to do that because I really like my investments in my RRSP. Well, guess what? The RRSP and the RIF, so registered retirement savings plan, which is when you're building up, putting money into the account, building it up for retirement. A RIF is a retirement income fund. That's when you're starting to draw it down. Those are umbrella names for the types of accounts. But what you hold under the umbrella can be the exact same thing. Meaning that when you convert or move your money from your RRSP over to your RIF, your investments don't sell, they don't change, it stays all the same. All you're doing is basically lumping it from under this umbrella over to under the RIF. There's no tax consequence, there's no investment sell and rebuy, all of that. It's a change of name on the account. It's very simple. Talk to your financial advisor, your investment person about how to do this, but you do not have to change investments. Now, as you enter retirement, it's probably prudent to review your investments to make sure that what you're invested in lines up with the cash flow needs, tax planning, all of that within that account. Another question we get asked all the time is, can I have more than one RIF, retirement income fund? And the answer is yes. A lot of you, unfortunately, have many RRSPs. You've worked at different jobs. You have old group RRSPs kind of sitting everywhere. And step one would be, let's start consolidating that. You simplify it. It would shock you how many people we come across that reach out to us many days, weeks, years later and say, oh, Adam, I found another account that I totally forgot about. I worked there 20 years ago and it's got $25,000, $30,000 sitting in there. That's why you want to consolidate, so that you don't forget about accounts that you have. So step one, consolidate your RRSPs. You can have a couple, but don't have 10. Have 2, maybe 3 max, ideally 1. From there, though, when you convert to a RIF, you can have multiple RIF accounts as well. The downside of having multiple RIF accounts is you're going to get multiple tax slips from different sources. So when tax time comes, do you prefer to simplify things or have it a bit more complicated? I prefer to simplify things. I like to have, one RIF account, or recommend to have one RIF account, so that your tax slips are coming from one source. Much cleaner, much simpler. Your income's coming from one source, your tax slips are coming from one source, the withholding, everything. It's just a simplified process, but you can have more if you want. I recommend, wind it down to one, find a good kind of home base for that, for the investment side, but try and simplify things as you enter into retirement. And this is one way to do that. 3 more key tips here for you. Number 1 is, if you have a spousal RRSP and you're looking to convert it from a spousal RRSP to a spousal RIF and start drawing money out of it, if you've put money in this year or the previous 2 years, there could be attribution, meaning that the person that put the money in to get the tax break, if you pull money out, money could be attributed back. So it's last in, first out. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a $100,000 spousal RSP that you put that $100,000 in 10 years ago. But last year you topped up $5,000 into that spousal RSP. Next year you plan to convert and start drawing money out of it. The first $5,000 that you take out will be attributed or taxed back to the person that put the money back in. So just keep that in mind. One way to get around this, and it's not really getting around it, but one way to kind of massage it a little bit would be, when you convert your RRSP, a spousal RRSP, to a spousal RIF, the following year there'll be a minimum amount that you have to take out of that spousal RIF account. If you only take the minimum amount, there's no attribution. So there's no attribution on the minimum amount. Above the minimum, there could be, depending if you had those contributions in the last 3 years. So let's say you have a $100,000 spousal RRSP, you convert it to the spousal RIF. Your spouse or whoever has that account is 60 years old. They could take out that $3,333 without any attribution back to you as a contributor. So just keep that in mind. Tip number 2, and this goes back to why you want to convert an RRSP to a RIF, is at 65 forward, there's 2 good tax breaks here. Tax break number 1 is the pension income tax credit, meaning that the first $2,000 or $2,000 of pensionable income, which would be RIF income, not RRSP income, only RIF income or other types of pension income, but your RIF would qualify for the pension income tax credit, your RRSP would not. So that's a great reason why, if you don't have any other pension income, convert at 65 and take out at least $2,000, because you're going to get that pension income tax credit and essentially can pull out that money tax-free. The second big break, and this can be a massive tax break if you're married or common law, and I know all you singles will leave the comments below. I'm sorry, there's no income splitting for you. Maybe one day they'll figure out a solution for that. But if you're 65 and older and drawing money out of a RIF, you can income split that money. And for a lot of you, this is a big, big piece of your tax planning in retirement. And so this needs to be incorporated into your retirement plan as well. So 2 big tax breaks for you as you get 65 forward with the RIF account versus the RRSP. My last comment around here, because as you enter retirement, the first couple years, there's a lot of money movement. Like, you're used to going to work, collecting a paycheck, money goes into your bank account, typically the right amount of taxes withheld, and it's very simple. But what happens is, when you hit retirement, you have a RIF, maybe a LIF, maybe a pension, CPP, OAS, and then if you're married to common law, you got double. Like, you have a lot of income sources. They're all pulling a different amount of tax. So my caution and my comfort words here to you would be, in the first few years of retirement, especially the first 12 to 18 months, kind of the cash flow, the taxes, all this, it takes a while to get used to. That's normal. So if you're sitting there saying, Adam, I'm in my first year of retirement and I have a plan, but man, like, kind of money's all over. I have enough to enjoy life and all that, but like, it's kind of confusing. You're the norm. That is absolutely normal. So don't think that you're an outcast being confused about everything going on. The key to all this is make sure you have a clear retirement plan, tax plan, cash flow plan. Make sure there's kind of someone with you, coming alongside you. Hopefully it's a financial planner. Could be someone that really knows what they're doing, friend, family member, whoever. But encourage you to find a really good certified financial planner to build out a plan and walk alongside you with this. And you'll know that, okay, I know the plan is great. I know we're doing the right thing. So even if you don't understand every piece of it, you'll start to understand it as you go forward, especially after you do your first tax return, maybe your second tax return. And my last piece of advice for you in this video, and I could go on forever, but typically the first year of retirement, you'll get a bigger refund than you're typically used to. Not everyone, don't hold me to that, but typically there's more withholding tax than you need to pay. Again, if you're drawing pretty aggressively out of your RIF account to delay that CPP, if you're doing that strategy, which typically makes a lot of sense, there could be a 20, maybe a 30% withholding tax on a lot of your RIF withdrawal. But your average tax rate might be 10, 12%. And so they're holding back. There's no way to get around that other than make sure CPP and OAS maybe as you start to take those, there's no withholding tax. So work with your financial planner on this. But typically that first year, maybe even that second year, there's a bit larger of a tax refund than you're used to. And again, no way around that. It is what it is. But I always say, come tax time, I don't care if I owe money or get money back, as long as I know which direction I'm going to. No one likes a surprise. I mean, maybe you like the surprise if you're getting a big tax refund, but you definitely don't want the surprise of, I owe a big amount of tax. So build out the plan, understand exactly the dollar amount of tax you should be paying, roll out your retirement cash flow plan, and it'll bring comfort to you as you enter into retirement and go from this converting your RRSP to a RIF and everything else that comes with it.